Stop wasting time doing business development all manually. This is one of the biggest pieces of advice that I share with new recruiters about how to be as effective as possible, being that we all have limited time in our days. Before the advent of new tools and AI systems, so many recruiters were stuck building lists every single day in a very manual format. They would need to find the companies that were hiring for their niche. They would need to find the hiring managers at those companies. They would need to find the hiring manager's contact information. And they would honestly spend more time building their lists of who to reach out to than the time they spent actually reaching out to those people and actually building those relationships. As we know, for recruiters, the most effective thing we can do with our limited time each day is building relationships by talking on the phone with clients and candidates. That is what all of this automation and all these tools are really built around, is what can we do to increase the amount of time that we're talking to clients and candidates and decrease the amount of time that we're doing absolutely anything else. And this is a super crucial lesson. And you may think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm only spending 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day building out these lists. But when you multiply those 2, 3 hours a day times 5 days a week, times 4 weeks a month, you are spending so much time doing work that an AI tool like Flynt can do faster, do better, and do with just so much more simplicity and so much less headache. And to show what this looks like, I will show you the process of what manually creating a list of business development outreach looks like and compare that to how quick we can do that same thing with Flynt. So here I have my LinkedIn account pulled up and I am on the jobs tab. And to do this manual process, we're going to go through those steps that I mentioned earlier. We're going to look for open roles in our niche. We're going to identify the hiring manager and then try and get their contact information. We'll see how long this takes to do this for one lead, and then we will compare that with how long it takes to get leads with Flynt. So for this example, let's say that my niche is sales managers, sales leadership roles, right? So I will come into the jobs page here on LinkedIn and type in, let's say, sales manager. We'll do this to start. And this will show a quick search for us. And I can put in a couple of filters here if I'd like. Let's say that I only want jobs posted in the last 24 hours. I only want to find sales manager jobs that are, let's say, remote. And then let's see what else. Anything else? Yeah. And let's see. Maybe I want to only find full-time roles. Okay. For this demo, I think that's perfect. We're looking for sales manager roles that are fully remote, full-time, and posted in the past 24 hours. So here we have our search results. We have over 100 different results that showed up, which is good, but we now need to filter through this list because not all these jobs are going to be good, right? Some of these are going to be staffing agencies, and likely being that we are a recruiting and staffing agency, we don't want to reach out to other staffing and recruiting agencies. So we want to filter those out. The company might be too big. I personally don't want to reach out to the Amazons and Metas and Googles of the world because those are such large companies. It's going to be a lot harder to break in. And so we need to go through this list one by one to really figure out what is a company and a role that does fit our criteria. So for example, we have this role here with Lensa. And so if you look into it, it says Lensa is a career site. So they're not a staffing agency or firm, but this regional sales manager role is not for a role at the company Lensa. This is a role for a different company. So even we know right off the bat for this role, this is not a good candidate for us to add to our outreach because this is not the end company that they're hiring for. But we can see, here we go, Mercury. I mean, I personally know Mercury is not a staffing firm, but we can still look into it. And here we go. Yes, we see at Mercury, they're building this, right? So this is a job for the company Mercury. So, okay, that checks off our first box. It's not a recruiting or staffing company, but let's see if it's too big. I personally like to reach out to companies under 200, but we'll see what this one has. So I'll click on the company. Oh, look at how many employees they have. We can search this with LinkedIn Recruiter to see this as well, but it likely is going to be above 1,000 is what it told us. Yeah, over 1.5 thousand. That's too big for me, right? I don't want to reach out to a company that size. So going back to my list. So let me click back here and we'll go back to the jobs that we found on LinkedIn. All right, so we'll keep scrolling down our list. Let's see, Cookwise.ai. I'll use this as this example because I feel like this is a good chance that it will be a smaller company. But BD manager, let's see, is this a staffing or recruiting firm? Okay, it says information about Cookwise. So nope, I think this looks like a role actually at Cookwise, which is good. So first, checks our boxes. This is not a staffing or recruiting firm. And is it under 200 employees? Let's take a look here. I think it might be. All right, perfect. Oh, only one person. And that honestly makes it easier for our sake, but we'll click into Robert's profile. And in this case, I would bet money that Robert is the right person to reach out to about this open BD manager, business development manager at Cookwise. Okay, perfect. Now I've identified the person. Now I need to figure out what's his contact information. There is a load of different ways that we can get someone's contact information, but for this example, Contact Out is one of the tools we use. So I'll open up his profile and no information. Nope, we couldn't find his Cookwise email. Back back to the drawing board. So we found a good company, we found the hiring manager, but we couldn't get the right email. Let's try another one. All right, let's try this one here. Sales development manager at C8. Is it a staffing firm? Looks like it's not. It's describing the company here. Let's see, is it under 200 employees? I think it is. That sounds good. So then we'll pull up in LinkedIn Recruiter the list of all the candidates who work there. And now we have to think, okay, this is a sales development manager role at a company that has 42 employees. So who would likely be a hiring manager here? Who would be overseeing a sales development manager role? Likely director of sales, a VP of sales, a head of sales, CRO, maybe a CEO at a company this size. Head of operations, no. Chief marketing officer, no. Co-founder, CEO, maybe. I'll open up a profile on another tab. That could be a good fit. VP of R&D, SVP of sales, Jordan. I like that. That could be good. Let's see what else. Director of sales. That could be good. I'll open it up. So we have a couple different options here. I like this. All right. Investor, co-founder, maybe. VP of customer success. Engineer, managing partner, board member. No one else is really screaming out to me as they could be a good fit. But let's just check. Yeah. Okay. I think we found our top one. So we have Dave, director of sales, SVP of sales, and the CEO. I think personally, Dave's probably the best fit here. Do we have his work email? No, we don't. What's the next one? Do we have the work email? No, we don't. Do we have the work email for C8 Health? We really don't. So in this case, we might have to use a different tool to get their email. But as you can see, so many things can derail the process when doing this manually. Either we find a company and it's a staffing firm. We just wasted time on that. We find a company, it's the right size. Oh, but we can't find the contact information. We wasted time on that. And so we've been working on this for about 5 minutes now or so, and we still haven't found a single lead with a company that matches our criteria, a role that matches our criteria, and the contact information for that hiring manager. So we just spent so much time for nothing, essentially. Now, conversely, let's talk about what a very similar search would look like on Flynt. So I have my Flynt agents here, and I'll click on one that's sales leadership because it is very similar to the search we did on LinkedIn. And as you can see, every day I am now getting around 30 leads generated automatically without me having to lift a finger. And so we'll click into these leads here and we'll see, do these leads match my criteria that I'm looking for? They are sales leadership roles in the United States at companies under 500 or 200 employees. It tells you who is the lead, what is their title, and then what is their email. How do we reach out to them, right? So we can even pull up this role. So Flynt found this job for a sales manager role, and the hiring manager that they pulled is a director of sales. I think that's perfect. It's one level above. And we also have their email. So this was all done automatically, again, without me having to do absolutely anything. So we just spent 3 to 5 minutes not even getting any results. But even let's say we did get a lead, it took us about 3 to 5 minutes to get one lead, right? And so if we want to match what we did here, we're getting about 30 leads. 3 minutes times 30, that's 90 minutes. It would take us to do this all manually to get a list like this. And Flynt did this automatically for us. It does this every single day. So you can essentially wake up, open up your computer, and boom, there is your lead list ready to go. So let's break that down. So if we had done this manually, it would have taken us about 3 minutes per lead. Let's say we want to get about 30 leads like we have here. 3 minutes times 30 is about 90 minutes. So an hour and a half is what it would take us to do this manually. On the flip side, we did this with Flynt, or rather Flynt did this for us. So it took us 0 time, 0 energy. So we just automatically saved 90 minutes right there. So we saved an hour and a half per day. Let's multiply that times 5 days in a week. So we saved 7.5 hours this week just by using Flynt. 7.5 hours, multiply that by a month, multiply that by a year. Think about how much time you're getting back by being able to use a tool like Flynt to save you so much time and do so much of the legwork to free you up to do your most high value activity. And that's talking to clients, talking to candidates, and building relationships. So if you are finding yourself stuck in the cycle of spending hours and hours each day building out your lists, look no further. A tool like Flynt can do all of the legwork in a fraction of the time, saving you to spend your time building a business, making money, and making deals. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.